Welcome everybody to the Parish Council meeting. Apologies and reasons for absence.
Councillor Belling isn't well, Councillor Sykes is elsewhere, and Borough Councillor Shilton has another meeting.
Right, so we accept the one who's ill. Are we happy with the other one who is elsewhere? We are. We accept the excuse. As usually. Okay, that's when he's accepted. Accepted, not accepted. Declaration by members of any interest peculiar other than in accordance with the code of conduct. I didn't see any. Does anybody have anything? No, nothing to declare. So no need to approve or reject any applications for dispensations. And a reminder to everyone, the meeting is recorded with the big silver microphone, and that if the technology works, that goes on YouTube on the Parish Council's YouTube site. Just a oral, an audio recording. There's no video. Happily. Right. So we'll now break the meeting up, adjourn it for the public session, which enables the members of the public here to make points, raise questions or whatever. We always take the planning applications first, and the first one on the agenda is 15 Forge Meads, and you're here for the applicant, I think.
Yes, shall I come forward?
No, you can just stay where you are.
Will it reach me?
Oh
yes, yeah.
Just speak up, you'll be fine.
Perfect.
It reaches me, or
Sorry?
vice versa. I'm okay for it.
Good evening, Chair, Councillors. I'm here today to talk about planning application PA 2023-1417. My name's Andrew Keats, I'm from Tenterden. I'm here talking on behalf for Mr. and Mr. Willett. We're talking about 15 Ford Meads. I'm sure you've all had time to have a look at the planning applications. The whole idea for this is to allow extra storage area for the family, mainly used for shoes and coats, etc. And also to generally enhance the living standards and the standards of the property. It's within keeping of the keeping the appearance of the existing building, but using similar materials as the main house, potentially sustainable if possible. Other houses down Forge Meads have similar porches, so it will be also within keeping of the residential environment. And if improved by yourselves, this will be carried out by a certificated builder.
Good.
I open you up to questions.
Or whatever. Okay, does anyone have any questions for?
Are you a friend, or are you the architect? Or?
I'm not, I wish I was, no, I'm a family, I'm brother-in-law.
Good, thank you.
I would say that was ideal, by the way. We don't always have a very clear, crisp presentation.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
And I've already asked the clerk, none of the neighbours have actually raised anything with her, and none of them have attended, although the other members of the public are very welcome to comment.
Of course.
Does anyone else want to comment on it? No? Does any councillor want to raise any questions while we're in the public session? No? Okay, well when we get back into the council meeting proper, then we'll discuss it and decide on our view.
Absolutely.
I should say that we do not approve it. It only gets approved or not by Ashford Borough Council. Our job is either to support it or object to it with any reasons we want to advance.
Yeah, absolutely understood.
But they have to ask our opinion, but they don't have to take it. Okay, the next planning application on the agenda is the Court Glebe house replacement. Is that something that you want to talk about, Julia?
I think the only query we have is the actual resulting height of the house. And is it going to be taller than the existing house? I think that, was there anything else that we...
No, and I think we have resolved what we would look at from our end.
Yes,
what
from our end. But we have Yvonne kindly looked at the plans with us, and we realised that in fact the side of the house that is facing us, or overlooks our garden, there's a Velux window and a solar panel, according to the plans. Other than that, I don't think we really have any objection, do we, to what the plans are at the moment, but perhaps there will be other things that will come up in the future. But at the moment, we don't have an objection.
Anyone want to ask? Yes, Alan.
Julie, I think you have a covenant to prevent a two-storey or a bigger.
Yes, I believe we do. But I don't think this is considered to be a two-storey. There are rooms in the roof.
That makes it not a two-storey, does it?
Well, it's not my wording.
They're usually referred to as things like dormer bungalows.
Yes.
And as you said, it's commonplace language that planners use to say there are rooms
Exactly.
in the roof. Or indeed, like if it was a proper two-storey house, it's not,
No.
like yours, you could then have a loft extension where you put rooms in the roof.
Exactly.
My old house in Sevenoaks was a two-storey house, but the new people put rooms in the roof. This one, of course, is a bungalow with rooms in the roof.
That's
but I mean, I
they're
take your
calling it.
point, it's a matter of
Yes.
how the word
But it would be still
used.
be very interesting, and I don't know if you know what the height
I
of the
don't.
finished house will be.
I don't.
And how are we going to find out?
I thought it said something about it was in line with, was it number 8, Addison Cottages?
Oh, really?
It's
With
lower than Addison Cottages if you look at the
Okay.
street view that they gave you, which Yvonne
Yes.
I think pointed out. But all you've got is Addison Cottages, which is the highest.
Yes.
Then you've got this one, which is a bit lower.
Yeah.
Then you've got the very low building, which is a bit lower, the very small one.
The
Yeah.
bungalow?
The bungalow, yes, and the top isn't even, it's very low. It's got rooms in the roof, but the roof isn't very high. This drawing here that you've seen.
Yeah.
What is a bit unfortunate, in my opinion,
Yes.
is up to the planners to say what they have to have, is that they show this low one, which is lower than the new house,
Yes.
but what they don't show then is the
Yeah.
one in the walled garden, which of course goes higher again.
Yes.
And because that's a two-storey house,
Yes.
no rooms in the roof as far as I know,
No.
I suspect, but I can't say because we haven't got the information, that will be higher than this new one.
Yes. But that
So it sort of goes down a bit then up a bit.
exactly. I understand. But that, in fact, speaking from our point of view, doesn't affect us in the slightest because we don't see it. What we're interested in at the moment, when we're in our garden, we can see the roof of the house at the moment.
Of
Next
Court
door.
Glebe,
A courtly
which is
outside.
kind of sideways from you.
Exactly. And it's just the sort of the end of the roof, really, or the top part of the roof. What we're interested to know is whether with this new building that is going to be higher.
My suspicion would be that it will be a bit higher than Court Glebe,
Yeah.
but it will still be a bungalow height rather than a house height.
So what is that? How do we know?
I think if you, as you're very much entitled to, if you put your comment into Ashford, making your concerns known,
Yes.
you can. And I think possibly meanwhile you talk to the applicant
Yes?
and ask if he can get the information from his architect.
Yes, okay. That's a
Because
good
it's a
idea.
standard house, I mean they will know how
Sure.
high
Yes,
it is.
because I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but I have had the impression it arrives rather in, perhaps not kit form exactly, but
Yes, Lego.
yeah, yes. Well, like the Hoff houses that one sees on
Yes, it isn't a half, it's a Scandia house.
Yes, a
but
Scandia,
it's
but it must
basically
be
the same.
the same.
They are pre-made to a
Exactly.
great degree.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can do it, and also the architect, if you want to get into the fine details, there's also the issue of their survey of the site and the ground levels and everything, and where they're putting it. That's why it's difficult, or it's impossible for us to make a very firm judgment
I understand.
unless they give it to us,
Yes,
because they could put it here or they could put it here, you know.
yes, yes.
I wouldn't want to take from you the idea that I would say without knowledge that it will be higher than Glebe, Court Glebe,
Courtly.
simply because Court Glebe's got a fairly low roof.
Yes, it has got a low roof.
The other one by definition, I think, will have a higher pitch to
Yes.
the roof
Okay.
to put the rooms in,
Put the rooms in. Yes.
but it will not be as high, I would say, as a two-storey with a roof on it.
No. Well, good. Well, because that's what we.
You're between,
One.
you're betwixt and between.
Yes. Yes.
Given
I
the
see.
amount of rooms on the second floor, though, they're going to have fairly decent roof space.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a question of the pitch of the roof.
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about flat roofs, you know,
No.
they went out in the 1930s for most people. You can have a fairly low pitched roof, depending on, you don't have it too low because it puts too much stress on the walls, but lowish roof, going up to a higher roof until you eventually get to, let's say in the Meadows, they've got some with cat slide roofs, where
Oh,
they
yes.
are made almost artificially high, you know?
Yes.
And it's going up a bit, but not
Yeah.
too far. And you've got to go up enough, even with the dormers, to put the windows in, which of course then from the inside look like part of the room. You've got to go up enough that your headroom goes out far enough. If you make it too low, you only have sort of headroom in the very middle of the
Yes.
house.
Which is a bit pointless.
It's pointless. So
Yeah.
that's where the pitch gets driven from.
Yes. Right.
So I think, to be fair, it will be a bit higher than you're used to, but
Yes.
it won't be as high as a normal house. It won't be as high as Addison
Right.
Cottages, as far as I can see from that plan.
No.
But all of this is my opinion. I'm
Yes,
not
yes,
giving
I-
any assurances.
Yes. The other thing I'm interested in is the access. You see, there's a double bar gate on the plan there. I'm sure looking at that plan, it looks quite wide. I'm not sure that it really is. It looks as if it's
The
You would
text
just
says
go
it's the
up,
same access that they've got,
yes.
but I haven't noticed what you are pointing out.
No, well, it
looks
just
wider.
looks quite large, but
It's in the same area, same place. Yes.
I think the access width isn't changing.
That looks like a
No,
5-bar gate
it
rather
does,
than 2
yes.
gates, and
Yes.
that's what she's got at the minute.
That's fine. Okay. Yes. But then that wouldn't affect.
They're
it.
also
It's just
putting it on the
an interest.
basically, essentially, roughly the same
Yes.
footprint. You know, in other words, it's set well back, a bit like you are.
Yes.
Probably not as far back as you are, but set
No.
well back.
Exactly. Okay.
I'm not really familiar, and possibly you are, Jeremy, or somebody else, with the statute or the regulations regarding covenants. And presumably the only person who has an interest in a covenant is the person who sort of holds it. It can only be enforced or unenforced by them, rather than somebody else.
The general understanding that I have, and it's been discussed time after time here and there, is that, and I haven't seen it, if Wittersham Court has got a covenant, as has been mentioned, about only having a bungalow on Cork Glebe land, presumably dating from the time when the Cork Glebe site was sold by Wittersham Court,
I suppose.
before your time,
Yes.
that covenant could only be enforced by yourselves as owner of that property.
Yeah.
This is at best, because covenants are a bit flaky in my understanding. But it could only be enforced by you, is my understanding. It could only be enforced by you if you were able to demonstrate, I think, if push came to shove, that it was a kind of genuine concern to your land. It's got to be to your land.
Yes.
And thirdly, the planners stay well away from them and say, nothing to do with us, you can enforce it if you want to.
Okay. Yes.
The general thing I've always heard is the planners say, nothing to do with us, we're only involved in town and country planning acts.
Okay.
And that is to give someone permission to have a building, not the fact that someone else may be able to stop them having a building.
So had the Newtons decided they wanted to build a large 2-storey house, we would have been able to say,
Well, you could have tried. I don't know whether you would have succeeded,
No.
because
Well,
there are
that's-
cases
yes.
where judges say, it's a long time ago,
Yes.
I don't think it's very valid, no reason why they shouldn't have a 2-storey house, forget it, you
Sure.
should go away.
and
And there
which
are other
case it
times
wouldn't
when they
have
say,
meant
the covenant's perfectly fair, it's justified, it's proportionate, it's, you know, the people still own the house, because you're different people to the ones you put it on in the first place, you know, fair dues. And frankly, like all things in court, you know, the lawyers will tell you, maybe, maybe not.
Yes. Okay. Well, anyway, it's not going to happen. I mean,
No,
is it?
I understand that.
I think.
I would like to think that that is entirely right
Yes.
for good village relations. But I think that you've raised a perfectly fair point to go through with them.
Yes.
Plainly, as you will realise, the project only stacks up if they have rooms in the roof.
Exactly.
And then rooms in the roof equals a certain pitch and on you go.
Yes.
But I do understand that you would like to be reassured as to it not being something that is far different from what you think.
Already calling that, we would like to be reassured that it is not going to be a very high building.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a question of talking to John.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that's the only answer to this.
And they're not there at the moment, so we'll wait until...
No, they apologise that they couldn't come tonight.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone want to add anything to that, or by all means say that I'm talking out of my back of my head?
So what happens now, Jeremy? We've talked about it. Do you then carry on talking about it to decide whether...
What will happen next is that if there's anything else that the members of the public want to raise, including Paul behind you, then when that's finished, we'll close the public session. I will close the public session, which then means we go back into council session. All 5 of you are entitled to stay as long as you like. You don't have to rush off. You can stay and listen to the meeting, particularly for your own planning concerns, but stay to the end if you want to. But you aren't able to take part. You aren't able to say anything once we go back into council session. We will then discuss the planning applications. We'll do them both at the beginning after we've done we always do the minutes first, and then we'll do the master revising, I think. Then we'll be on to the planning applications. It won't take that long to get to that. So you can hear us discuss it ourselves, and then we will decide between us, which comes down to, if necessary, a vote, as to whether we support or object, and whether we have any points we want to make to Ashford in our response. And then that goes on the public site that Ashford maintain. And then the planner, when they come to consider the application, will read those comments, including ours, and they generally comment on it. They don't have to agree with us, but they will comment on what we said if we gave any narrative in their consideration, in their discussion of the merits and the demerits before they decide whether to grant it or not.
How long does that usually take?
It'll take them some weeks usually, unless they pull it out and do it very quickly, and I don't expect they will because it's a bigger application.
Yes. Okay.
They have a deadline. I think they have, how many weeks? 13 weeks all in all? There's a target under it. Yeah, it'll say when their target is.
There's a date on the portal, isn't there? So
Yes.
if you look on the Ashford Borough
There'll
site,
be a
it'll
target
tell you
date.
the target date.
And they try and do them by then.
Yes.
And it's a delegated decision, so the planning officer who it's been allocated to will look at it and decide what they think is the right answer. They'll write that draft report, and it will then go through an assessment process internally with, I think, 1 or 2 senior planners who look at the report to make sure they don't feel it's wrong. And then if that's okay, I think it just goes through on delegation. If it is called into the planning committee, it will then wait to get onto the committee agenda in a future month. But that would not normally happen for one house. It only has to go to committee if it's over 50 houses. But it can go lower if there's a lot of concern, interest, or if the ward councillor says it should do. And he's not likely to for one house because it'd make him very unpopular.
On the application it says that the latest decision date calculated is the 20th of November.
20th? Oh, not so far.
That's what it's saying.
If
That's
they
quite
make that
quick.
date.
Yeah.
Good.
And they'll try to.
Good. Oh, that's nice. Well, I'm just thinking, it doesn't affect us. I'm just thinking of that as a nuisance. That's a matter of interest.
Sure.
Okay, thank
And
you.
even when they give permission, then there will be conditions to be discharged.
I'm sure.
They'll have to explain what their bricks are going to look like, and their this and their that, and
Yes.
You know, everything just delays everything.
Yes, I bet.
But it will then get built very quickly.
Yes, that's what I
Less disturbance.
understand. Yes. Interesting. All right, thank you.
Paul, do you have anything to raise with us?
No, thank you.
Okay. Yes, please do.
Thank you for letting us speak again. I just wanted to add one more thing to the planning application PA 20231417. Although it doesn't have it on the drawings, there is actually going to be a 100-litre water butt installed onto the side of the extension, but that was added after the drawings were put on, but I just wanted it noted.
I don't think that actually has any planning consequence. I think you can put a water butt where you want to. That's my feeling anyway. I don't think it makes any difference.
Well, I was just on the understanding that if you do development on your house, you're depending on the size of the
Yeah, I just don't know that a water butt counts for that.
Perfect.
But it's a good idea.
You know, it is a good idea. So, can I close the public session then? Yes, everything done. Good. Okay, we'll come back to our agenda then. So, and thank you everyone for that. The minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of September, did anyone have any concerns? Can I sign them?
The only thing I thought was on the tree at the Memorial Garden,
Yeah.
I thought we agreed to not have to go to the tree warden first because the tree's practically dead and that we could go straight to our
That's
council.
right. And we're going to a tree
But
warden to
the
get
minutes-
advice on what to put in its place.
I thought the minutes didn't really read
Yes,
like
no, I
that.
understood. I think it was Paul that said that we ought to ask
Yes.
the tree warden first before we took any action.
Listen.
No, I overruled that and I said to agree that we would get on because it's dead anyway with taking it out before it falls on someone.
Right, well, I haven't because I've been waiting for...
Right, okay. But you could. Okay, so we've got to make a time change to that. I didn't spot that. Obviously I read it through when it was a draft and it didn't come up to me. But you are absolutely right, Sally. Well, if considered dangerous, Clark, go ahead, and you did consider it dangerous, I think.
Well, if he thought it were dangerous as well, you know, that I was under the impression it was the tree warden that was going to make the decision as to what should be done.
Yeah, I think what happened was that was the position that you put to the council, and then I said, well, there's no point delaying if it's dying or dead anyway, let's get on with that, but the tree warden needs to advise on its replacement. The tree's dying. So we need to change that then. Your writing is more neat than mine. Make it an application, take out before. An application will be made to ABC to fell this tree. An application will be made to ABC to fell this tree. Full stop. It was agreed that the opinion of the tree warden will be sought on a suitable replacement, and then take the last sentence out. Okay, I shall initial all of that. Okay. Anything else? No? So I can sign them? Good, thank you. Right, that's a minute's done. So matters arising. The Highways Improvement Plan update. I don't think anything's changed since last time. As far as the speed limit that we've talked to Kent County Council about in Peening Quarter, you've been asked for the first amount of money, the invoice for the amount of money we have to give them to start it off so they can design the scheme, and that will happen. You don't need approval to pay that, do you?
No, because we'd
already agreed it, yes. And the tarmac of the grass stretch in the top of the street, the advice from KCC, I think more for them than us, was can we please leave that, although they've agreed in principle we can do it, subject to them going into all the details, they said can we please leave it until we've done the speed limit.
Oh, but that was, they wouldn't give us a ballpark figure. That's what we asked for.
Yeah.
We asked them and they said no.
We can't do that, we will need to we'll have to have the invoice first, we'll have to pay for that first bit. But in the meantime, let's get on with doing the...
Sure. They also, of course, are saying, well, they want the first 1,000 quid or something to scratch their whatever and to think about how to do it. Right, the bus shelter update, we've got some news.
Well, only in as much as I still couldn't get hold of 2 of the 3 that I was trying to get hold of. And so I left messages explaining what we wanted and if they were interested for them to get back to me. And they haven't. But Lee Gammon is certainly interested in doing it. So we're back to the 2 that we had in the first place. That was Stephen Hutchings, who couldn't do it straight away. And Knights of Oxley,
Right, sure.
they gave us a quote at the time, but obviously we're interested.
Yeah.
So we've got 3.
And who's Lee Gammon? One of the Sallies?
Yes.
He's the chap that's just building the stables down Peening Quarter and he's done work for Paul. I think he did something to do with Paul's garage or...
Looks like good work.
Yeah, he's done lots of work around the village.
Good. Okay, thank you. So that just wends its way.
Yes, so where do we go from now? Now that we've got...
Where do we go from now? Well, what I've suggested in the past, I think, is that we need, in my view, to have a discussion with anyone who's going to be involved in putting a proposal forward with what their proposal is, what we need and what their proposal is, so that we know what they are then going to quote for, rather than say, can you quote to do it? And then we say, well, is that this, that and the other? And they say, no. Okay, well, what we want is this. Oh, well, in that case, I'll change my quote. And you get it. You finish up without getting clean quotes at all. So I think we've got to have that discussion, and I'm going off imminently until the end of the month, so it will be after that.
And will that be with Greg?
I'm sorry?
Will that be with...
Well, Greg has said he'll give us whatever help he can in terms of his much more technical knowledge than mine.
He's got some drawings as well, hasn't he?
Yes, he has got some drawings. But the sort of thing we've got to sort out is, for instance, exactly what materials they're going to use, how they're going to apply certain things. I mean, the drawing is an outline of what's needed and the sizes, really. Okay, the Swan ACV update. I think, I'm not sure if it had come through by last month, but it has come through now. I'm sorry?
It hadn't.
It hadn't. It has come through now. It's been granted. So that is in place for another 5 years they give them for. That leads to the question that Swan is due to close at any time. I did just ask someone who is a more regular customer there than I have been, why he hadn't been doing food. What he thought the outlook was there. He said, as far as he knows, this is, his understanding, that it will definitely close and stay closed. I said, is it just closing for the winter when the heating bills go up? And he said, no, he thinks it will close for good. But we know the guy's got it on the market, but we don't know whether he really expects to sell it or what he does intend. So the question for us really, a matter arising from all of this, is what, if anything, we do now. We had the Save the Swan campaign before. I do know that the chairman of the campaign before is not interested in taking that job on again. He did a great job last time. not again. If we did want to do anything along those lines, I think we probably have to crank the whole thing up again with a public meeting and all the rest of it. And I am less clear than I was in 2018 when we started all of that the clamour to get the place back is there. He's been doing very well with drinkers, but I think a lot of them are from outside the village. I think he always said he hasn't got the clientele he needs, but he's never put the food on properly. So, you know, you have chicken and egg.
My understanding is it's closing on the 15th of October.
Yeah, that's the date I've heard.
Whether that's right or not, I don't know.
No, that's the date I've heard.
And that he's already bought 2 other,
He has.
public
He's bought
houses.
certainly one in Rye, is the general
and one
story.
in Dymchurch on top.
In church, right? He seems to be in the business of trading pubs, but
Yeah.
they don't stay open very long. So does anyone have any views on whether we should be trying to do something, and if so, what?
Keep your fingers crossed.
One thing that I was asked to do last time, if you remember, by Paul, was to see whether I could get any sort of reopen contact with the person who valued it before. That's the person who valued it for the Save the Swan committee. I spoke to, sorry, I didn't speak to him, I've had an exchange of emails with him since we last met. He has told me that he, of course, remembers doing it. He'd be very happy to value it again in current circumstances. He does a lot of valuations for the Plunkett Foundation, who are the people supporting the committee. They have government money to try and support pubs and shops and things like that in villages. He does a lot of valuations for Plunkett, who, if it was Plunkett based, would have a special price, and he would give us the special price, which is significantly lower than his normal rate, as you would expect. So that is a possibility. If we wanted to do that and find out what it is worth, we would need to talk to the proprietor, firstly so that he could go and inspect it, and secondly to get his accounts, because pubs are valued largely on their trade. And here we have a curious situation where Kevin is saying, on the one hand, I'm advertising at 650,000, which is pretty rich considering where it was valued before. I know he's done work on it. And secondly, well, I've got a lousy trade, so it's not really worth very much. Curious situation. But I don't think we have to take a decision on that now, but if we want to, and I've told him I'd have a meeting tonight and see what councillors thought. He's very happy with the valuation if we want it. And it would cost us money.
Well, yeah, and I know Paul's keen, but my point of view is, well, we're not going to take it forward, so why would we want to spend council's money on that?
I think it was not so much whether we would take it forward or not as to know what the outlook was. In other words, let's just say, for argument's sake, and I'll just pick a number out the air, and he paid 502,000 for it at auction, but that's because, like in any auction, he got bid up by somebody else. Let's just say he valued it at 450. Now, I mean, it was valued before for the Save Our Swan at about, if I remember rightly, about 325 in its previous condition, closed. And he said it would be readily worth 400 once it had opened. And the deal that the Save Our Swan was going to do was 400. And that was accepted by the sellers until COVID intervened, and then the bank decided to pull the plug on the mortgage and just put it into liquidation or administration and put it into auction. And he eventually paid 502, which was obviously way above what it should have been. Well, now Is it worth 502? Is it worth 502 plus any refurbishment? Well, arguably not, because the turnover is low, according to Kevin. So let's just say it was worth 450 rather than 650. That kind of gives you a sense as to, well, has he got any chance of selling it as a going concern? I mean, maybe if he took 450, but I don't suppose he wants to. It just gives us a bit of a sense of where it is, but I agree with you, it is spending council's money for no particular. It gives us better knowledge, but it doesn't give us a direction. It also means, by the way, if he goes, this is another point that's important, if he goes along to the council, Ashford Council, and says, look, I've had it up for sale for 650 for 9 months, and it's definitely worth that, and I can't get anyone to buy it, so I want to do something else with it. It would at least give us the position of saying, if we found out about that to Ashford, well, it's not worth 650, we've had it professionally valued. And that's why it didn't sell. What we don't want to see is it knocked down, but on the other hand,
not sure about that.
on the other hand, the reason we don't want it knocked down is because we like it back as a pub. There's no point just having it as occupying a corner site doing nothing either.
Or deteriorating.
Deteriorating again as well, yeah. I mean, the story is he's going to live in the upstairs rooms that he did as bed and breakfast, but then never marketed them as bed and breakfast. We'll have to do a certain amount of heating during the winter just to avoid it getting damp. It's a bit of a mess.
Do we know whether the village still wants a pub?
Well, how do you? I mean, he opened the pub and people rushed in initially. He then started to trade mostly with outsiders on their way home from work, it seemed. He's put the Thai dinner on once a week, but that's run as an outside venture by the Thai lady who does it. He just sells the drinks. He put the cafe on, which I thought did okay, but it was only ever going to be a support. It's never going to be enough on its own. And he's never put any other food on in the evenings. So, I mean, the thing is that the village pubs, like the Ewe and Lamb in
Ewe and Lamb is an attractive building.
It's an attractive building, and they're putting very good food on and everything else. Or the Star in Rolvenden, or the Bull in Rolvenden, they've all got dinner offer in the evenings, and perhaps lunches. The cafe was an interesting idea because that's not something that's usually done, but it's not enough on its own. It was very
The whole
competitively
thing
priced.
was very ugly. It's not appealing, I don't think.
Well, I take your point. It's not a shishi pub.
I'm not talking about shishi. I'm just
but we've got the
talking
one
about
we've
in the
got.
form
Yeah, indeed. We've got the one we've
of.
got.
I don't think it invites people.
No.
No.
I'm not even sure whether it's open.
Well, he don't put his sign back up. Yes.
Anyway,
Well,
I have my feelings.
we'll just
about
leave that then
Just leave.
undecided at this point. Just lingering.
I can't see any point in having it valued at the moment.
No, okay, understood.
We can always change our mind when there's other
Oh, absolutely.
councillors here. If they've
Yeah.
got strong opinions or
Absolutely.
something otherwise.
Yeah, there's no need to jump on it. Well, I've got the guy's name and how much he was on to do it. I can't remember what it was. And we can go from there and sort of keep an eye on what does or doesn't happen. It's all a bit of a shame. I had much higher hopes for it. And the alternative, which he beat in the auction, I think could arguably have worked perfectly well. It was a different pitch altogether. To be a village pub, basically, rather than this is a beer house. Okay. Village Hall Management Committee representative, Sally, that was resting on Paul talking to the underwriters. And I don't know that that's happened.
I don't think
He's
it
not
has.
here. Okay. Future of the fir tree at the entrance to the Memorial Garden, we've talked about. The website. Yvonne and I've made contact with the clerk at Great Chart Parish Council, who's been on to me again just as recently as today. She's very keen to see us up there so she can show us what she does. That is, she operates it herself using the Vision ICT system, which they sold to a lot of parish councils. It costs money. Depends on the size of the council, and it's a sort of estimate depending on what they think. It would be, I think, but it's up to 2,000, they say, to set it up initially. Once they've got a specification from us of what we want, then £250 a year from year 2 onwards to help the clerk. But their system is still that the clerk puts stuff on and can make changes to it. There are a load of videos on YouTube showing people who use it how you add an extra item here, how you change something there, how you do this, how you do that, how you put a picture in, things like that. But it's fitting in a template. So that's an approach, and we can go and see Annie the clerk at Great Chart to find that out. The alternative there, these are like two ends of the spectrum. Mary Filer, who lives in the village and does Iden and a couple of other parishes in Rother, but she used to do Appledore. She uses the same website that was developed by one of the councillors at Appledore on a system from a firm called Wix, I think it is, W-I-X. And she likes that because it's very, very free form. She can do pretty much what she likes, but she knows how to do it. So she can put text where she likes, she can put pictures where she likes, she can structure her menus and all the rest of it. Now she's going to show us how she does that also when I come back from holiday and we'll go with Yvonne. They're kind of two ends of the spectrum really, one more structured with more outside support, one where you're more on your own, but you can do more with it if you can do it. And we can start making the judgment from that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think that's money much better spent
Okay.
than on the pub.
Good, okay.
And wouldn't mind tagging along. That's appropriate. Have a look at those.
All right.
It's up to you.
Right, okay, that's the matters arising. Now we come to the planning applications. The first one is Fort Meads. What do people have to say on that? Alan?
I'm happy to support.
Mm-hmm.
Quite straightforward.
Okay,
Support.
so I think we're unanimous in our support. Are there any points we want to make? I mean, I don't think it's pretty straightforward. I think that's about it really. We'll support that, so that's what will go into Ashford. Now the slightly more elaborate one, Court Glebe in the street that we've been talking about, the roof height. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. What do people want to say about that?
Support.
Should we just talk about comments first then? Do you have any comments on it?
No, I've asked the questions I needed.
Okay, right. Sue?
No, I don't think so.
Given Julia's point, actually I'm interested to the height of the roof because it's over 2 times the size of the footprint of the bungalow that's there now. So that's quite a big building, especially if they're not going up that much.
Sorry, it's quite a big building, especially if they're not going.
Yes, because I was thinking, well, if it's just over, I think it's about 2 1/4 the size of the footprint of the bungalow that's there now. So if you think, well, they're going up, so that's
Is it
accounts
2
for
1/4
one, and then
times?
there's only a quarter, which would account probably for the
Is it
garage.
2 1/4 times bigger?
Yeah, 2.2, I think.
I looked at the plans and I felt it looked nice and proportionate.
Isn't
It did, but I didn't realise it was a
Yeah.
bungalow.
I didn't spot the 2.25
It's
ratio. Is that the square foot?
168 square metres at the moment, and it's going to be 302.
Is
I think.
that actually the internal square meterage? In other words, some of it's on the upstairs. In other words, not the foot. I don't know. I didn't look at this the way you have.
Right.
But there's a danger of picking the wrong number here, where you're looking at the square footage or the square meterage of the house, bungalow as they call it, rather than the footprint. In other words, by having rooms upstairs, if it was the same size as Court Glebe and you put another lot in the roof, you not quite, but you nearly double it anyway.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but then when you're saying actually it's a shallow bungalow, it's not a 2-storey house, I'm thinking, well, in that case it's going to have, that square meterage is going to have to go somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
It's still floor space above ground.
Floor space. You don't get the full floor space on the first floor. That's true, because of the sloping roof. You have the sort of T-shaped rooms where you've got dormers. The roof isn't as high as if it was a 2-storey house, because if it was a 2-storey house, the gutters have already started 10 foot higher to fit in the next floor. But definitely it goes higher than a true bungalow need, because you build the roof higher to get the pitch.
Yeah.
Anyway, what you've said, Sally, is that you'd like to know the height of it. That's a bit tricky for us, because we ain't going to find out quickly enough. We don't have another meeting until next month.
That's Julia, if she finds out
I
the
think-
electorate.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't help us. We don't have a meeting.
Oh, yes.
I think all we are in a position to do is to. I think that it's entirely reasonable that we raise the point in our narrative that the question of the height was raised with us.
Yes, so this is what, perhaps I'm not allowed to talk now.
No, not really.
No, right.
I'll talk for you. You haven't actually found it though, have you? The height? No.
Well, I can read from John, it's...
I never found it. And I was disappointed that the street view was slightly restricted. Didn't go on to the next one, which would have given us a good guide. Okay, Leslie.
Well, I actually thought it looked a very nice design, appropriate to the village, and particularly, as you said, it's a Scandi build, therefore, from the sound of it, it's going to be very sustainable, well insulated, fuel efficient, the sort of building we should be promoting in new builds in the village. So, yeah, I support it.
All right. So,
Looking at the drawing though, it didn't look like there was a huge area of solar panels. I know they've got the source pump as well.
I've questioned that.
Well done, Jeremy.
I have questioned that. My view is that, rather like Leslie, I think that we should be, where we can, supporting these ultra high efficiency houses, and the Scandia house trades on that basis. I mean, I don't know the figures, but it trades on that basis. As far as solar panels are concerned, and they haven't got a fraction as many as I have, the reason that is the case is because I'm mixing up two slightly different things, but they come from the same point. I did ask John Newton whether he was having they're having a heat pump. Was the ground source heat pump, which is the best, because he's got the land area to put it in, and he's going to have machinery in to dig all the trenches. No, he said, I've been told I don't need it. I only need an air source heat pump because the place will be so efficient, I don't actually need that much heating.
So well insulated.
So well insulated. And not only insulated, it will probably, but I haven't asked this question, have a heat exchanger on the forced ventilation. Instead of having all the sort of little leakage things on the windows where the drafts just blow in, it'll all be pressure ventilated with a fan, and it'll all go through a heat exchanger, so you warm the air coming in with what's going out. That then ties up to some degree with the fact that you don't need much solar power either,
Right.
because what do they need it for? You're not going to use it to run the heat pump in the winter because the sun and the winter don't, the heating don't come at the same time. They're putting on as many solar panels as they need on the architect's assessment, be it based on, low energy lights and all the rest of it. I mean, I put a load of solar panels up to specifically export, but they just don't need them. So it will also have water harvesting, grey water harvesting, which again is a good thing. It will save some mains water. And of course, as Leslie already said, a lot of this comes from very high insulation standards, which are just built in a way that we never had in the ones that were built. Even my 2000 house isn't that good. So on that basis, I'm pretty positive about it. I do understand the point about the height. I hadn't recognised it until I heard that the neighbours had that concern, because I usually think of height forwards and backwards, and this is kind of along to the side some distance, but of course their garden does stretch in that direction, and it will be an issue potentially from the garden rather than from the house, which is some distance away. As far as the actual decisions are concerned, you've already said, Alan, that you support it. Sue?
Yes,
support.
Yeah, support.
I said support.
So we do support it, and we'll put that point to Ashford, but we will point out that there has been a concern raised with us about the height, which we'll register it with them, but you really ought to put that in yourself. Talk to John, and then put in whatever you feel is an appropriate.
So we should also be in touch.
You definitely should always do it yourself. Don't just rely on us.
No.
Go on the portal and fit the Ashford planning website and put the number in, and then get into where you can fill in a comment. You'll find that somewhere, and then you say who you are and all the rest of it. It will be published. Bear that in mind.
Yes.
So be neighbourly.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
But,
Sure.
But feel free. You're certainly entitled to raise that question.
If I may just say, I know I'm not supposed to speak, but the current height of the bungalow roof is 5.89 metres, which is interesting. So we'll see.
Yes. The thing is, it's 5.89 against some datum, and we don't know where that is either.
No.
Is it the sort of level of the front step or
the
road or whatever,
Okay.
Anyway, but thank you for that.
Right. Okay.
Right, okay, we've done the planning then. So, on we go to appoint a trustee to the Judith Mary Training Fund charity. You, I think, more or less volunteered yourself last time, didn't you, Alan?
I don't remember doing that.
Yes, you did. I was sitting next to you. Yes.
Do you? I don't.
Yes,
Thank you both.
I thought I was being suitably evasive and not volunteering.
No, but we could read between the lines, Alan.
No, well, I think I need to qualify this a bit, because I have been involved with David Williams with the process of this fund, and you will have probably put 4 and 5 together, that the amount of funding he's planning on putting in depended to a certain extent on the outcome of his planning applications. But there is still, as you know, an existing planning application which has been approved, which I think is now going to be sold.
Indeed, it's up for sale.
But then I think there are other resources going to be put towards that, and of course, indeed, as you may know, there's some resources going to be put towards the church, and there's a balustrade and a bit of stained glass, all of which the process of getting approval for that grinds forward incredibly slowly.
Right.
And I know David's already got volunteer from Stone Parish Council.
Yeah, indeed.
And also from the Benefice, and I can't remember who they are, I've been told.
Right.
And he did say, because he did do a chaser after I'd already put it on.
Yes.
We are now in a position to register the charity with the required minimum of 3 trustees, including a Reverend Jeanette, 1 family member, and a member of Stone PC.
Yes.
I remain hopeful that Wittersham School will nominate a trustee and that Wittersham PC will do the same.
He tried the school and he didn't get a response from George yet. But I said I might have a way of intervening and seeing if I can encourage him to do that. But he's always busy at the beginning of the school year. And I had assumed that everybody in the parish council would be allowing their names to go forward and we'd have to have an election.
Better you know better than that.
Oh dear, and I'm not really sure I'm the appropriate person because how to put it, I've been involved with helping him develop the concept, and I'm already the chair of the distribution committee of the Jeremiah Greenland. You could turn into a one-man show. It would be better if somebody else was to put their hand up. That's what I'm saying.
No one has.
Well, they haven't yet, but I'm twisting their arms as we speak. And I'm not looking around the room, but I'm looking out the window. But I know there are 3 other people here, and whatever. It would be.
I am not getting involved in any other charities. I've had my fingers burnt too bad.
Yes, well, indeed, it's easy to get them burnt.
You did say though this has been set up as a CIO, which is limited.
Yeah.
Yep.
As yours
Yes.
should have been.
Yes.
Let's change your mind, Leslie?
No.
You're talking about the one that.
The tragedy.
Right. Yes.
So I think it comes back to you, don't it? With your experience.
No. Because I've been involved in negotiations with him and discussing it with him, I see quite and talk to him.
You know him best.
And I do. And his plan is to move away, actually, to Appledore, I think, where his son lives.
That makes sense since they're...
but he is 89, so,
Right.
Okay. Well, the Jeremiah Greenland only meets once a year.
This is only going to meet once or twice a year.
It won't meet any more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take your general view in that, he has this idea that, which may be realistic or not, that he'll offer this sort of educational fund to the school and it will be taken up in an appropriate way without a competitive bidding and without complication. But these things are never without complication, are they?
No.
And that's the problem. But he doesn't see it like that. He sees it, it's going to be terribly straightforward and so on. The nice thing about the Jeremiah Greenland Trust is that it really doesn't have any money. Which is actually strange, but it is actually quite convenient because, I talked to somebody about this and he said if the amount of money that was in the Jeremiah Greenland that had been placed there by Jeremiah Greenland in 1832 had been properly invested and not misused or tapped into or misappropriated or anything, it would be worth several £100,000 now. Right?
Yeah.
But the sad thing is, it's only got about a few thousand in it. Where the rest of it disappeared to over the decades is unknown. But disappear it did. And it was in abeyance between 1940 and when Peter Dolhoff got it going again. So that's the sort of complication that one can have.
Yeah.
But if you insist, I will allow my name to trickle forward.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much, Alan. We'll move on from there.
I think that was well volunteered, Alan.
Associated with a little speech to make you feel bad.
I always like a volunteer.
What else can I do?
The next item is agree to provide...
Are you going to write to him about this? Now, how are you going to put it? I don't want you to make it sound so well. Alan Lloyd Smith enthusiastically volunteered. Can you find a way of words which doesn't sound embarrassing but makes it so do you know what I mean?
Persuaded.
Yeah. Well, yes, avoid that as well. Is going to do it. I don't know what you're going to say, but something that doesn't sound either over or under enthusiastic.
Okay, just state the fact.
All right. We got to agree to provide a safe entrance for pedestrians to the War Memorial. I hope everyone saw the email I put out, which had some pictures on it. You saw this?
Yes.
The idea being to mean that while people may still, well, let me put it this way. Firstly, Remembrance Day would not, as far as I'm concerned, Remembrance Day wouldn't change. We'd all cluster on the roadside around the triangle and whatever, and people would walk up the steps from the road to lay their wreaths. But when we're not having the Remembrance Day service, at the moment the only way to get in and out of the War Memorial is from the roadside, which is potentially a dangerous position if people come scorching down the street and swing round the corner and are looking at where they're driving rather than who's just round the corner. And not only could they run people over, but they could also trap them against the wall, which would be very damaging to their lower part of their body.
We were going to say the wall.
And the wall. Equally, women with their kids going to the primary school, they all traipse around there to my horror. But we've taken that, although they still do it, we've given them a route through the garden for that. But to get to the War Memorial, you still have no choice. So what I long wanted to do since before COVID, when we were all up there and looked at it, is to break through the hedge behind the War Memorial, just a suitable width, and pave a path from the memorial to the hedge, and then the hedge to the main path going the loop round the garden, so that people can go in and out safely, and hopefully we discourage, if we get the rest of it done by the hairdressers, we put a little sign on the grass saying safe route to bus shelter and war memorial. You know,
I just can't see any objection to that.
No. Well, there's no reason.
I'm sure there will be. But
Yvonne will have to ask for the conservation area, will you? Or not? Is it too small for that?
Yeah, we're not going out into the road.
No.
It's going
Did you
out
ask
into
for the
road.
Did you ask the conservation area about the path that we did out to the bus shelter?
I think I might have done, but no.
It was only that they didn't care.
Yeah, you see, they didn't care about the UNM post. You know, there's
Well, we did
certainly
go.
not going. I know that when I looked back, when years ago they wanted to take the path out onto the pavement opposite UNM, and they weren't allowed to do that because that's making another thing onto the road. But this is within.
Sure. Okay.
So we're not changing.
Fair enough. What we do have to do is at some point is decide exactly how we make the break in the hedge.
could just appear one morning.
No, I mean it could appear one morning, but the question is that we need to sort of end off the hedge, maybe with two big posts or something, and then I think potentially put a gate in there, maybe a sprung gate or something like that, just to provide a break. But that can be figured out as we start looking into actually doing it. We've got to find how to pave inside the memorial. Do we need planning? Ignoring the conservation, do we need planning? I don't suppose we do. Or what about being, as we're doing something next to the listed building?
I'll inquire.
Inquire. As long as they don't screw us up. I mean, we're going to try and pave it with stone as far as we can, similar to what's in there. Now, what I have done is
hopefully not, because the ones that are in there are very slippery when they're wet.
Okay. What I have done, I did brief Roger King, the Secretary of the RBL, after the last meeting.
British Legion will come back with that suggestion.
I did brief Roger King from RBL, the Secretary, on the plan after the last meeting. He said he'd go and have a look at it, which he did do, and he's talked to colleagues. I'm not sure if he talked to the RBL member here.
Colin.
but I did talk to him again today, and he said that the ones he'd talked to said this was all talked about years ago, and fine, you know, what the hell. I mean, I did say to him, it's up to the parish council to do. We own the memorial, but obviously we want to carry our bill with us, and he saw there was no reason to object at all. It's perfectly sensible.
I mean, what about, because I just raised about the slipperiness of the stones, the existing stones. I mean, is that something?
Well, it's an interesting point, and also when I first spoke to Roger, he said, now that's a very interesting idea. I will go and have a look because there are other things we might like to see done at the memorial. And I said, fine, you know, be my guest, make any suggestions.
Okay.
And maybe repaving it is an issue. But the problem with that is all paving is slippery when it's wet. Unless it's the stuff that they use for blind people at crossings, when actually you trip over it then, you know, the little studs, they're vicious.
Well, could be something to investigate, different surfaces. Not necessarily, but...
Yeah, I mean, that would add to the cost, but, you know, I personally, I wouldn't rule anything out. I just think that it's something that we should actually just get on with, if Yvonne inquires. And I do think probably two quite stocky, but the hedge is quite deep.
Yeah.
So even if it has two stocky posts, the hedge will tend to grow around it a bit. But at least it still kind of gives an end rather than everything just sort of falling over. And then if there is something that would do it, either one or two gates just to make a line, but not the sort that you sort of have to lock and unlock, just ones that you can push open and they swing closed or whatever we can find. Good. I did send you that picture. What did you think of this?
That's half an age ago.
Okay, but it looked to me as though it's actually going to fall over sooner or later. It's got quite a lean on it. So I think you might need to ask your stone wall man. Who was it last time? Paul? We used to use, of course, Ray Pilcher, but he's retired now, I think. It'd be worth a look anyway, because it looked to me as though it'll fall over eventually, or get knocked over eventually, and either way it'll be heavy when it goes. That's this.
Oh, right. Yeah.
When I looked at it, I thought, blimey, is that new? Or alternatively, it was an old one that had been hit again.
It looks like it's been repaired once.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
There's a thing, the drain. Now I'm going back 40 odd years now. There's a drain that goes along, and it is somewhere underneath this, and that's when it collapsed and the drain was filled in, so there's whether that's got something to do with it.
The other reason I thought
it's going back a long time.
The other reason I thought it was new was because there's all this loose earth just behind it.
Well, yes, that's because the plants have been
just dug that over.
Just dug that
Oh,
over.
is that what it is?
Yes, those plant those.
Oh, okay.
And it's
divided.
much wetter that side actually than it is the other side.
Okay.
There is a drainage
Yeah.
thing there, but I'm going back 40 years.
Okay. Well, I just think we've got to be a bit careful about that wall, because the whole wall has got a lean on it, and then it's got this crack, and it's shifted an inch or two. So, right. Okay, but we've agreed we're going to start making progress on that. Good. Correspondence on the completion of the audit.
Yes, we've had the official notice where no comments were made, but they had come up with this minor scope for improvement in 2023-24. The internal control objective F on the form, petty cash payments were properly supported by receipts. All petty cash expenditure was approved and VAT appropriately accounted for, was ticked yes by the internal auditor when no petty cash was held by the council. The box should have been ticked not covered or NA, and an explanation provided if no petty cash was held. So in future we've got to ensure that that is correct. But it goes way back, going back years and years, and that has always been ticked, and nobody has ever made any comment. But we do have new auditors.
It's really the way you read those words, because we do comply with everything while having no petty cash. And they're saying, well, if you don't have a petty cash, how can you comply with doing your petty cash correctly?
Well, that's what
You know, I mean,
our internal auditor said when I said, he said, well, yes,
sure.
you do comply. That's what why he ticked it. And I did have
Because
to
if you put no or don't tick it, then that's open to...
we have to explain.
And the other thing is there's about 4 things all on one tick, and the other 3 are all complied with. It's only the one that's about petty cash that isn't. So it's making a meal of it. Anyway, what I can tell you, to follow up with Yvonne, is that it was discussed at the Calc Executive Committee on Saturday. A load of councils are still waiting for their audit, and they're quite unhappy because they have a statutory duty to be publishing that they've been audited by the 30th of September. And the auditors have said you are authorised to put a note up saying the auditors have held you up, but the law still says you have to have done it. And there's also someone, and I'm not sure if it was Mary Philo, but someone, or whether it was at the meeting on Saturday, but someone's been going on to me about how they've been getting big queries from the auditor about wanting to shuffle around a whole load of their fixed assets. And it's quite surprising because, I mean, the auditors don't get paid very much. They've just got a contract to do thousands of these. And yes, they're actually raising real issues.
Right.
But I don't remember if it was someone on the Zoom call or if it was Mary that told me that.
Well, Mary, I don't know whether different county, I don't know whether...
Probably the Zoom call,
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was.
Yes.
Okay.
And also that I've had to put on the website that the acre is a scan
Yes.
and not to be, and it's not compliant with the accessibility regulations, as it should have a wet signature, and obviously it doesn't when it's been scanned.
Oh, well, it's only the law. Don't worry about it. Right, can we look at then the next thing is the clerk's expenses of £67.17. Stamps, envelopes, the broadband allowance, and more stamps.
Well, the stamps was
For
the
consultation.
when I had
Indeed, absolutely.
30 odd.
Yeah. Blimey, that was expensive. Pound
I
each.
think we can tick that.
Okay, so expenses are done. The next thing is the donation to the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal. What we have done in the past every year is to donate £100, which is then they kind of give us the wreath and we give them the £100. I don't know quite how it works.
Other way round.
Well, but in other words, though, we don't pay for the wreath, it's done as a donation. It comes out of the fabled chairman's allowance that never comes to me. So I don't wish to have it. That's all right, isn't it? Okay, we carry on as usual. Now, working party reports. The caretaker, the first thing that Yvonne has told me is that Alf will be on holiday.
Just going back, do we need to discuss anything about the wreath laying and things for the poppies?
Well, it's at the very bottom.
Yeah,
12B.
Is it at the bottom?
Yeah.
No, it is at the bottom anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
big
Alf's going to be on holiday for 2 weeks from the 20th of October. Yvonne has raised with me that in the past, the distant past, before I was chairman, there was a time where councillors, which actually used to mean John and me or John and you, used to go out emptying litter bins all around the villages. My feeling is that the litter bins will just have to look after themselves for 2 weeks, with the exception that Yvonne, I think, have you spoken to Colin, or you think Colin will do it?
Well, Colin Yeah, somebody did mention.
The litter bins at the shop, they tend to be a real problem. They do.
Goodness, can't the shopkeeper do that?
Exactly.
Well, that's another
It's
possibility.
his letter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be. But
No,
it's
it is, but this is
Not
this
supposed
is
to
the
be.
problem. It is, and it.
One possibility. That's a possibility. The only thing is they've got to go across to the wherever Alf puts them. Puts them.
But if he
out
could
for
store it
different-
in his yard
Yes,
until
that's
Alf
what-
gets back,
yeah.
and then Alf will
That's
just
another
collect
possibility.
4 instead of 2.
Sure, that's true.
So has he been approached?
No.
Sure,
No, I
maybe.
thought Yvonne started off telling me last week that she thought that Colin would possibly do it because he's opposite.
I think it's much more appropriate
But
that.
if you say,
Sure.
I mean, it's perfectly sound, I will leave you to have a talk with him.
I think that would be
I
sensible.
saw Alf the other morning, walking the dog, in Coronation Field, and asked him about his litter, the emptying of the bins. And he said that really the only two possibly needed to be done were either side by the bus shelter, one on one side of the road, one on the other. And I said, well, if I was around, I don't mind doing that.
That would be good. And then Sally's going to talk to Dax to persuade him he's got to empty the ones. He's got black bags in his shop anyway.
I mean, I will be away between the 20th and the 25th, but I think that I'll still be back
Yeah.
in time for the second week.
Do people need a special key to open the...
I need to know how to change
I
the
don't
I
key.
don't know, because obviously I don't.
Because Alf may only have one key.
Anyway, the offer's there.
Thank you.
Okay.
If Alf
Right,
wants to tell
anything
me how
else
to do
on the
it.
caretaker?
No, that's fine.
Right. Finance, we got the monthly transaction statements. Now, as usual, there is the one that has everything on it and the one that just has the caretaker parts pooled off it separately. Have we got something? I'm just looking at this. Oh, I see, yeah, okay, it is a straightforward line, it just looks slightly odd. Okay. So, does anyone have any queries on any of these numbers to ask Yvonne about? I can get through these at home. So there's just one that's gone. Oh no, sorry, there's two there. Right, okay. Right. Does anyone have any queries on any of them? No, so can I sign them? Okay. It just looks different because you don't get lines on yours. Smart. Okay. And then the caretaker one is just part of that. No problems?
No. So you can see we've had the money in from Ashford, so let's bump that up to. Thank you.
Now we get to the half-year budget statement. Now, we want to send two things out. The first one is the one that we've had in the past, the portrait one. This comes straight off of the accounting system, whereas Yvonne used to do them separately on a spreadsheet. That's why it comes out the way it does now. You can see, and this is up to which quarter are we? Because we're on the financial year, this is the second quarter, so we're halfway through the year, and you can see that we've got the money in for the caretaker scheme. That's to say the amount from Ashford and the amount from Kent. The amount from Kent was last year's, has come in this year, and we've got our precept. Why do these ones all have NA against them? It just comes from the computer. And this sort of thing like 10860 and 13450, that's the number of pence. 273140. It's bizarre. Okay, and then the payments, budgeted, actual and variances. Does anyone have any queries with any of them?
No?
No.
Okay, can I sign that then?
Yep.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, separately, Yvonne has sent out, having looked around on her system, a different presentation of the same thing, this one, which I got this afternoon, well I probably got before this afternoon, I certainly got this afternoon, I have not studied it yet, and I want to look through that, and then I might have some queries with Yvonne as to exactly how it is showing what we've got. The principle I was after, which this does do, I think, is to, instead of just showing, for instance, that you've got a budget for the year of £1,000 for something, and we've presently spent 300, and you say, well, is that 300 good or bad? It's 300 out of 1,000, but maybe we were only expecting to spend 100 so far, you know. We ought to have calendarised the budget to the degree that you can, where we can feel that the amount we've spent ties up with the right part of the budget rather than the full year. And I think this is endeavouring to do that, but I'll look at it more carefully.
Yeah, but see, this is what I was never mad keen on it, because all I can do is when I know, like when the insurance goes out, when
That's fine.
I can do that, but the rest of it is all just broken down monthly,
Indeed.
which doesn't give us.
Well, some things are okay because Alf's salary and your salary
Yes.
are monthly, and the amount that he spends on the machinery, obviously it doesn't actually fall in 12 equal bits, but it kind of gets spread across the year.
Yes, just the whole lot is costing.
So that if he's got £1,000 maintenance budget, hopefully he will only have spent about 500 in the first half against the 500 budget, rather than saying, oh, that's good, he's got £1,000, he only spent 500, we're 500 ahead. Well, we're not, because we've got the other half year to do. And that's what I'm familiar with from the commercial world. And the question is exactly how Yvonne can get it off the computer. Now this, partly by having put the budget in that form in the first place. Now this kind of goes into a fairly convoluted presentation, including all the subheadings, which she doesn't normally give us. But I will study this more. Thank you for doing this. I will study this more and see how it looks that we are doing. One thing I do think that it does point out is that actually the caretaker scheme is getting pretty tight. If you look at the numbers, bearing in mind we've got the annual amounts in, you'll find that we're now on the caretaker scheme looking as though we're spending a bit more than we can afford. Now we've got some money in the bank, but it is a bit tough. One thing that does give us a little bit of comfort though is that we haven't put our own contribution in that. So that's something for you to look at. Okay?
So the amount that we, or don't we charge, do they tell us what they're going to pay us for Al from the other villages? Does that cover his, a third of his salary, if you like?
No, not at all. Ashford paid, all the stuff he does in the villages is paid for, in principle, all the stuff we're committed to is paid for by Ashford.
Right.
So they pay for Wittersham, Warehorn, Carnarvon and Stone. We are by far the biggest lump, Stone the second, Warehorn and Carnarvon are both pretty tiny. Kent just gives us a lump sum for everything. The two that do give us some money, that's Warehorn and Carnarvon, do that as a donation for the service, which they like, and it also means that Alf, when they say, could you do this, could you do that, he does.
But Stone don't.
Stone don't give us any money, they don't have to, and they don't. They
Right.
only complain about us not doing the service that they want. And he is less likely, he does do some things for them, but he's less likely to kind of add stuff on because there's no extra money paid. But the amounts we get from Warehorn and Carnarvon are both very much appreciated. They help to establish a very good working relationship. And as I say, very well appreciated. Bear in mind, they have, there used to be 300, I think they typically put 500 in.
550.
550. We're putting 4,000 in. But that is partly because before the caretaker scheme we had more that we were paying to get people to do anyway. I mean, we are simply the busier village in that respect.
Yeah, so, places like the cemetery and the churchyard, Coronation Field, they were things that we paid for.
Right.
So you see, we paid for them already, so then they're not put into the caretaker scheme. Even if we still get someone else to do them, they're in the caretaker scheme accounts.
But basically, the money we get should cover.
It should cover.
All of his costs.
Indeed.
Like, the tyre, the service for the
Yeah,
van,
indeed,
whatever.
indeed, absolutely right. And what's happened over the years is that the amounts we get from Ashford and Kent, Ashford has never changed. Kent went up a little bit in the second year because we happened to have a meeting with them. So John pitched at getting an extra 1,000 and they gave it to us. But then it stayed the same. And we've always managed on that money, but without getting pay rises every year, and quite a decent one last year, then it's actually getting tough.
I've looked it up.
So when you say John, you mean the previous chairman?
Yeah,
So we haven't had a rise from them for quite some years.
Since the beginning, we've always done it on our own, on what we started off with. Now, why have we never asked for a rise? Well, had we not got in first with the caretaker scheme, when other people started wanting to have a caretaker scheme, Ashford revised their numbers downwards, is my understanding, and we would not have got those numbers at the time. Also, we did okay for a while, so, why rock the boat? But it's getting tough now. And that's partly because
that's our budget.
he's getting paid.
Agreed, so you can see how
We don't talk about his pay when the microphone is on, his actual pay, but we have given him pay rises every year. And out of a fixed income, of course, you do get to a point where it gets tight. We also have to think in terms of taking on someone new in time. And while obviously pay rates have gone up because of inflation, the new person doesn't necessarily start at the same place the old one was.
Do we need to cut back on what he's doing, or do we need to get some money from somewhere else? Or?
Well, you raised good points. We have had discussions in the past about finding other earning opportunities. Yvonne has always taken the view that Alf has got enough to do. There's not an opportunity, there's no time to do other things. I don't know if that's really the case, but it is certainly Yvonne's position, and she is his supervisor. I'm not. None of us councillors are in a position to supervise employees of the council. I mean, we can discuss, we can chat, but we can't instruct. That's Yvonne's job as our senior employee. The council's chief executive by any other name. It's normally Clark. But it is a delicacy, and this actually shows it up quite clearly, this new layout. It was always there, even though she mentioned it, but it does show up when you look at
Does
the
our
half year.
budgeting need revising? I mean, if the, man's got to earn a decent living wage, it's going up annually.
Well, it does. But there is a point where it will become untenable unless we can get a
Do
raise.
something.
And it may be that we could get a raise now, but it wouldn't be easy. Because what's happened since we took the care, when we got the caretaker scheme about 10, would you say 12 years ago? 11, something like that. Ashford used to get Kent County Council's landscape services to do their work, as indeed did we. Apart from Robert Pudan, who did some of it. So as far as Ashford were concerned, when they set up the caretaker scheme with us, they simply went through their files and found what they paid landscape services that year for all the work that they were then going to get us to do, which was what landscape services did in the 4 villages. So they just added it all up and said, that's it, 13,900 and something, is it?
Well, 19 is what we get from it.
Oh, sorry, 19, 13 is for us, yeah, 19,000 something or other was what they paid for the 4 villages.
We probably did quite nicely out of it then.
At that time we did okay.
But this is it.
But you
How
see,
long
our
ago was
landscape-
that?
but
Only
landscape-
times
well,
Landscape services would now have put their rates up.
Yeah.
However, what Ashford then did about 3-4 years after we took the caretaker scheme on was they sacked landscape services and set up Aspire as a trading business under Ashford. Took landscape services people, set it up themselves and set out to be more efficient. I can't tell you whether they are, but it's certainly set out to be. And also I think Aspire went out and traded. So, the people who need a bit of work in the industrial estate or whatever, they're probably going there and doing that as well. And so they have arguably cut their, obviously there's been inflation, but they've cut their sort of benchmark figures compared to when we started, and as Sally said, we did okay at the beginning. We were very hard up at the start because we had to build our capital up. The first mower only lasted about a year before it was knackered and we had to buy another one. And we needed another trailer and whatever. That was hard, and we had the machinery nicked a couple of times. So it was a bit tough, but then we started to build up a bit of fat. But now we've been going through the fat again.
But isn't it unrealistic to try and manage on the same?
Well, ultimately it is. It didn't look bad until recently, but we certainly have. We gave a generous rise last time, and that I think was put a bit of a load on it. So when we come to look at our budget shortly, that is a point to. By the way, another point is that while we put 4,000 in the first year, we've not increased that either. And actually that 4,000 was more than it used to cost us. In order to make the budget work at the beginning, we put in a bit extra. A point I've made quite often for political reasons elsewhere. But we've never increased it since, any more than Ashford or Kent. Well, Kent did go up 1,000.
Well, I just think we ought to revise the budget.
So that's another point that maybe we are, our precept's gone up quite a lot since then, and we put in the same amount. Okay, that's quite a useful discussion. So, planning. We've had decisions.
Yes, nothing else.
Okay, Directory and Furness. I find it slightly irritating that Furness was not able to get the 2-storey, immediately got the 1-storey. I'm not sure why they couldn't have the 2-stories, but there you go. Open spaces.
Yeah. I am supposing that, I know this wasn't done that recently, but looking at the play area, what the Ashford Council have done, I'm assuming that is deemed to be the improvements,
I think so.
and that's about as much as they're going to do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they had told us we were going to get nothing, and then suddenly, after I'd been,
I know.
you know,
And that subcommittee evaporated, the one who were keen.
yes, the money's been given somewhere else, hasn't it?
It's gone to the school.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, are there facilities within the school grounds for playing?
I think it was the pool, wasn't it? The pool that it went to. It was in the Outlook.
Can I ask, why did it evaporate? Was it because they felt that the improvements had taken place?
COVID came along again.
It was COVID, and I think it was also because Melanie, who had been one of the leaders of it, was ill. Although I saw her in the street the other day, a couple of days ago.
Wasn't Melanie?
But
Sarah.
something like that.
Sarah.
Not Sarah.
But Sarah and Karen were the two.
Oh, Sarah Middleton, that's the Middleton, right. Okay, Sarah Middleton. Yeah, I saw her. Yes, I think it was other things got in the way, Alan. And what I have done as far as our desire to take over at least the village green, is that I've asked Johnny to try and get some action within the council, because all they do is just ignore it. You know, any time I follow it up, oh yeah, ignore it. So he's following it up.
Right.
Whether it ever happens, goodness knows. I think it's just one of those things. Other councils have done it. I think Ashford are just obstinate on it. Other councils have got policies online, and they've made transactions at...
So what, we would take over responsibility of the village green? And by the village green, we're talking about the piece of land behind Forge Meads.
Yeah, behind Jubilee Field.
Yeah.
It's not all of it, it's the piece, the bit that's actually registered. It's the rocky bits and the pool, the pond, and a sort of square there, goes down to Mick's boundary. It's a formally registered piece. The basis of
where
that...
the horse is that part of the village green? No,
because you can't do very much on the village green. It's of no value to Ashford at all, because they're not allowed to do anything with it. I mean, if we took over responsibility, I'd quite like to get some money off of Ashford for it, not just let them off. But from their point of view, it's just a waste of effort, you know. I wouldn't mind if we took the rest as well, but I think if they're obstinate, there's no way they'll ever give us that. I don't aim to pay for it. There is, under the Localism Act, they are entitled just to give things away to the local parishes. You know, and some of them have done quite a lot around the place. You know, they might give car parks away and things like that. Just whatever makes sense locally. But Ashford seem to just be... All I've heard of them doing is they've given long leases in one or two cases, but they can transfer freeholds. They just don't want to.
Because we did have it, we did lease it for a while.
Yeah. In order to try and do the pond. Because if we got hold of it, then the opportunity is there to actually start working on the pond with some community effort. Because the pond really should be sorted out. It's just a disgrace, really. Anyway, bye-bye. Thank you. Highways. You reported last time that you had got a positive response from the highway steward on trying to improve the safety risk up at the stops. Is there anything else?
Nothing else.
I had a representation the other day as you come through Peening Quarter and turn right, basically turning right to where I live. Yeah. I think it's probably Bernard Brown's field, and there was a time, and I'm going back into history now, where the council came along and said, we'd like to take your hedge out, we'd like you to take your hedge out and we'll put in a fence. Because if you're turning right, you can't see what's coming from Wittersham because of the hedge. You just pick your moment and you go for it, but you can't see what's coming.
I see.
And it's a little bit as though you take your life into your hands every time you go turn right there.
So you've come from Peeling Water.
I've come from
and as you're turning right, you can't see what's coming down the road.
That's right.
Because you're
and
just on the
if
bend.
somebody's coming fast from Wittersham and swinging around the corner, you know, you
Sure.
sometimes have to jam your brakes on and stop and change your mind.
I suppose the safe but difficult in other ways thing is a bit like I do at Iden Shop. I don't go up the one that they've made for you where you can have someone come in and crash into you. I actually go the long way round.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see that.
And then you can see further up the road.
Yes, you
but
can.
you've then got quite an
Well, no,
acute turn.
the trouble with that is people behind you then get put off because you're suddenly turning right.
Yeah.
And they can't work out what you're doing. They think you're mad, and they crash into the back of you. So it's all very complicated.
You have a very dangerous time.
Indeed. So I mean,
It's the voice of experience,
Probably.
But I mean, do you think there's anything we can do about it?
No. The
Well, it
bend
will
is the
be-
bend.
As I say, the farmer to cut his hedge down. That's the.
Well, I mean, how you know? Are you prepared to take them on?
I mean, if they put a fence up,
It's
how
not
would the
a
fence
high
be
hedge.
better?
Because if it's a 3-bar fence, you can see in between the bars.
Oh, a 3-bar fence, right.
Which is what they did. I mean, I think the history is this, that the council said we need to make the visibility better. And the hedge was taken down either by them or by Bernard.
But it's now grown again.
And then they put a fence in, and I think the agreement was that we'll maintain the fence hereafter. And then I think probably the fence deteriorated, and Bernard said, well, this is your fence now. And they said, no, it's not. And you're going to replace it, not in your Nelly.
So he grew a hedge.
So the hedge has just grown up because they didn't do what they said they would do about 40 or 50 years ago.
I can mention it to.
Yeah, talk to your friend.
Who would you talk it to? Tell.
Well, I will go first to Darren, who will, I'm sure, tell me just to report it on the site.
Because it is a dangerous junction now, and I don't know if anybody else has done that journey.
I presume it's really, I mean,
We did
obviously
that
to
turn.
you, but also for where Celia is and her neighbour Celia and is it Celia? Cynthia and her neighbour.
Well, anybody coming from Tenterton turning right.
Yeah, but there's and Palsbury, of course, there's only a limited number down there.
Well, yeah, but very important. I don't think that.
You can't turn right there anyway, the road's closed.
You can crash into the big yellow sign.
Well, my policy on that is to let the potholes develop, and let the road be closed, because they do say they're going to eventually stop using roads like that. And then we have a nice quiet
They've
road.
just resurfaced it.
They do sometimes do that, unfortunately.
Okay.
I missed public rights.
Is that what they said?
Well,
Well, how are we supposed to get around?
Well, you'll go to Tenterton and then left instead of going straight through to Rovenden.
Shocking.
Right, so we need to discuss PROW.
Unless they do the same thing as me.
Satisfy, it's not on the agenda, so we can't take a decision, but you can
No, I
report.
just want to report. I've got
Indeed, that's all right.
a lot to report. The new chap that we've got, I did ask whether the next time he was in the area, if I could meet up with him, would be good. So, just over a fortnight ago, I was on Ashford Station waiting to go to Southwold when he rings to say, I'm coming to the village this morning, can we meet? Obviously I couldn't, but I asked him where he was going, what he was going to look at. So he told me, we had a chat about some of the things, and he's come back and given me the result of his things he was looking at. The broken stile that goes from Pipersfield into Acton Cottages garden.
Yeah.
Neither Piper or the owner there has claimed ownership of it, so neither was going to do anything about it. But Mr. Piper has offered to install a new one and will assume ownership of it. But it could be some time before Malcolm's able to get one delivered to him. So
That'll be a gate now,
no, it'd be a star.
a star.
Star, you'd give him a
Right,
star.
okay,
Because it has stock in there, so they usually like to do stars.
okay, fair enough.
So that makes that footpath can't use. 1879, domestic hedges. He'd been told about domestic hedges needed cutting, which is going down Swan Street. It's the second one along that goes between Two Chimneys and Angela Goodwin Days, I think. Goes through.
Oh yes,
and the
that's
tall,
quite bad there, yeah.
tall stile at the bottom. Well, Trevor's been out today and cut the hedge as part of the countryside access warden bit. And Bates Farm been contacted about the stile. So that's the really high one. He had a report of a locked gate. From what I can tell, it's the footpath I've never walked that goes between just below Kingsgate and the entrance to the Malthouse Farm, the one that goes round. One I've never used because it takes you out onto the bend at Pear Tree. So it's an odd one, but he'd had a complaint about it locked, but he's been there and it wasn't locked, so he can't see a problem there. 1876, which is the one that goes from Poplar Road down to Kingsgate and then on down to the river. And that's where it goes from Poplar Road diagonally across the field. And the kissing gate has been put in the wrong way round, so it takes you out onto the track where you should be able to go straight the way down to the new house. And it should go through the new house's grounds, which it hasn't gone that way for years. I think, from what I think he said, they may be asking for a diversion to keep it on the line that we have always used. However, when I mentioned about the kissing gate going in the wrong place, and that he agrees it is in the wrong place, however, because it's taking you out onto a safe track, and it is possible to walk over the fence, it's not high priority, so until he has to speak to the landowner, there's nothing he will do about that. I mentioned, things I mentioned to him were the steps. When you're coming from Owley, you come down past Churchwood, down into the Gill and then up the other side to the back of Lloyd's Green. Well, the steps there are diabolical now, and I won't take half my walkers that way. So I asked him whether something could be done about that. No chance whatsoever, because it's not on the alignment, it's not on the correct alignment. Because according to the definitive map, it goes straight down past Carpenter's Field and then goes straight down the side of the cliff, which you can't physically do. But because that's what is on the definitive map, and it will take 10 to 20 years to get that changed. So
no, they can change it in a year if they want to.
If they want to, but not when they've got all these things to do. No. So they've got a big problem on that one. We're about to use that. And then you've got the path that goes down from the bridleway that goes down beside Stafford's Farm. The one we walked last week, where I reported that the overhang on the roof, the shed that's come out over the field, and then as you walk further along, there's manure pile that's coming through the gate, the fence onto the path. So I complained about that. But once again, it's the roof. There's a potential alignment issue here, he says. So until that's been sorted out,
there's potential alignment because Gleason's have realigned it.
Yeah. So until that's been sorted, there's nothing we can do.
As far as that shed roof, as far as that shed roof is concerned, he ought to realise that they're in charge of. I mean, they may claim they're not, but he's in charge of a PROW, which is dangerous. Because if I was walking the other way, I could cut my head open on it. Luckily, I not only didn't hit it, but I was going in the direction where it would have been a glancing blow rather than it just the corrugated going straight into my head. And it's a corner, it's not even a flat bit, it's a corner. It's nasty.
Well, I sent him photos. He sent a photo, but so there's
right.
Unless it deteriorates further, so until you split your head open, then there's.
Well, it doesn't have to deteriorate; it's bad already. Okay.
And the other thing, when I mentioned branches and tree branches and we haven't got the equipment, he's had quite a few countryside access wardens that are retired, so he's got lots of spare tools, so he's quite happy to provide me with
Some more tools.
some folding saws and things like that.
Well, I'm glad he did something. I mean, what's the point of him coming?
But when I will get them, of course, it's a different matter.
When he comes next time.
Yeah.
Really fashion.
When he's passing, he said, I didn't tell him where I lived.
Where is he from? Who does he represent?
He's public rights away.
Ashford again?
Yes. Well, it's
Kent.
Kent, but he's out at...
Well, I'm sorry, I think that demands a complaint. I mean, the man...
East Braybourne is where they are.
Really handy.
Totally unhelpful.
But he's looking forward to seeing me next time he comes.
Oh, I'd like to see him.
Which will be when? When he drops the saw off.
Well, if we want to complain, we have to complain on say to Mike Hill.
Really?
He's got
Well,
a
I've
bit of
done that
extra
before
time.
and
He's
do
got a
you
bit
remember?
of, yes, he's got a bit
That
of
thing-
extra time now because he's not on the cabinet anymore.
No, I saw that.
Right.
Okay, so
okay.
sorry about that. But
That's pro. Okay, highways we've done. haven't we? Cemetery and churchyard. Quiet. Date the next
the
parish.
trees growing still got leaves on.
There's
Oh
been
yes. The bishop's blessed tree.
we can just say there has been a further episode of vandalism in that you've seen the email, haven't you?
It's not really vandalism, is
I was on
it?
holiday, so I didn't get to see
A
it.
few paper towels thrown on the floor.
Vince was quite upset about it, which is adequate to cause it as a problem. No. Anyway, yes. But you'll be interested. Yeah, today I collected 2 signs saying CCTV you're being watched, which I'm going to put up.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not,
Doesn't matter, does it?
going up probably a deterrent, not deterrent, but
Yeah.
the wrong people on it.
Recorded.
Right. Okay. On we go. So we know what the next parish council meeting is. Items for information. The climate change meeting in the village hall club room when I was unable to come because I'd got COVID. There's been a report which you pushed out, I think.
Yes, because I went to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Yvonne went.
Thank you.
Now, I have been asked if you're going to come as well to a meeting on the 4th of November that is in his post, which is a working group on heating, insulation and renewables. And he's inviting people that come to the other one to maybe have to contribute in that area. And then I think his idea will be to do other working groups and try and, it's a very, very good initiative really, to just try and get people to start talking about, it's down as climate change here, but also I think from Kate's point of view, particularly Kate Miller's, it's also resource utilisation generally. She's very keen on cutting use of resources.
Yeah, so there was a lot of talk about having somewhere where people have got growing excess food, instead of just throwing it away, putting it somewhere and almost having a bartering system.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know
I'll give you
someone
6
who
of this and
grows
you give me
loads
some
of
that.
tomatoes.
Trouble is, everyone's got the same commodities.
Other villages are doing that.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and then to somewhere I picked up that they have a fridge in the village hall. Where
I have a
people can
serve
put
it to the
things.
chili peppers if anybody wants this. I've got one little bush. It's gone mad. Got some
It's-
more
it's-
red chili.
It's that sort of thing that she was keen, and people seem to be very keen on doing something like that.
I mean, the coffee morning would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Weekly.
Sort of barter.
Oh.
I'll do you 2 apples for an orange. Right, okay.
When was that, sorry? That 4th, did you say?
4th of November. I don't remember the time, I didn't write it
No,
down,
it's
but
not
it's
it,
in the Oast, which you and I go into.
It's about
And I think other people are welcome if they try to find out about it and let them know. Laying of the poppy wreath is on Remembrance Day on the 12th, which I am envisaging being there to do. Okay, let me just mention, only very briefly, I had the Calc exec on Saturday. That was the Executive Committee of Calc. I was pointing out to Yvonne, these are the papers for it. They're just the ones I did print off rather than the ones I didn't bother. It's terrible bureaucracy now. Loads and loads of stuff. The staff can't keep up with it. But they are doing a lot. They're going to a lot of meetings. They're getting more and more involved. We've got a young chief executive now, Charmaine, and she's very active. Yeah, things are going, but they've changed their approach to the strategic plan, a much more modern looking strategic plan, but to be honest, I don't know how they just get their minds around it. Subject to the AGM approving it, the charges are going to change this year. Go up a bit perhaps, but yes, it will for us. But they're changing the basis of them. It'll still be on band Ds, but the band Ds are calculated a different way from a government statistic instead of a local government statistic. But it shouldn't work out. It'll be a few more percent for us. It won't cause us any worries. Okay, does anyone else have other things to raise while we're in the council meeting? Alan?
Sort of.
Afterwards?
Yeah. I'm going to start clearing away, but I'm not. I'm still listening to what's going on, but I'm slowly these days.
Several months ago we talked about, and I don't know whether we were asked to volunteer for a scheme, about having a digital champion and
Indeed.
running workshops or something like that, isn't it?
It wasn't that you were asked to volunteer particularly, but we did discuss it. Now, Paul is sitting there.
I know
He is a digital champion.
Yeah.
And he is intent on trying to get something going in the hall here.
Right.
And I've offered him, he's not ready yet, but I've offered him my old computer as one that he can use, if it's helpful to him. And he then, but also the digital champions part of Kent and Ashford are both claiming to be very keen to help, provide materials. They've got other people, they've got a whole list of other champions who might be able to work on it as well, you know, I don't know how. But that's something really for Paul to...
So that's something for the council that we would just support.
I would say so. What I've said at the time, they're going a bit rocky there, Alan. They're not really going on top of each other. They're in a bit of a...
I didn't know you were such a precisionist.
Well, they might fall over.
I don't like being watched when I'm doing this.
It's a bit better. They're still not quite right. But
I don't like being watched when I'm doing this.
What I said at the time was that if money was needed, we might be able to donate. But equally, I think Kent has got money available. And Paul is plugged into that because he's now formally approved and data, what do you call it, the protection system, where he's allowed to.
Safeguarding.
DBS. Yeah, that's the one. I think it's definitely a bit dodgy, Alan.
You might get asked to do it yourself, Jeremy.
Yeah, I might have to.
I would like to leave something for somebody else to do.
Okay. So that's the answer to that. Half an answer. No?
Oh, anything I was accosted, if you like, by Ray Pilcher this morning.
About the pigs.
About the pigs.
And you could tell him that I have written off,
Oh.
because I got a thing from Stephen Lewis, including
The photographs?
no,
Oh, I've got
including a report from Ginny Minter, is it, at Bud's house?
Oh, I don't know.
And I've taken the middle part of that report, didn't say it was from her, and I've sent it off to the head of enforcement at Ashford this afternoon and copied it to Yvonne.
Good.
She said that the pigs had escaped, they'd been in the sheep field, they were chasing the sheep, they messed up the grass and they broke the fence. And that if they keep doing it, the shepherd's going to have to do something about it, which I assume meant shoot.
That's Janetta's lawn they're churning up.
no!
Did you say
Dear,
Janetta's
dear.
lawn?
That's Janetta's garden.
Oh,
Be
no.
careful what you're saying. It's a very fine wild lawn, which her daughter had just spent the whole weekend
Murray.
mowing. Yes. So she left it all up.
Well, apart from anything else, I would have, I mean, I'm not saying that they really want to, but apart from anything else, I would say that they could raise claims against the pig farmer. I don't mean to say he'll give them any money, of course, but...
Anyway, there's pigs in Janetta's garden.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And yeah, I presume these are the sheep fields.
This is Janetta down at the bottom of...
Yes.
Buds Lane.
Yeah.
It's all around Buds, you see, that's where the
I'll
piggery
pass it
is.
round, Alan.
Well,
They're not very big pigs.
I wonder if the electric fence is still up round the grass field.
Well, I think they've reinstated it today because they've put the sheep back on it. That's
Right.
they do dig nice holes, don't they?
Mm.
We're planning on going that way tomorrow.
Oh, are we?
Anyway, there's the other views of. If you
Back
can
end of
see.
a pig, yeah.
But I'm assuming these are in the sheep.
Mm.
The trouble with this, to some degree, I mean, I have acknowledged it to her. This is not a planning matter, but what I've said is that all the nuisance that's coming out comes originally from a planning issue,
Yeah.
which is, if they aren't supposed to be there, the enforcement should take place to stop all the consequences of no enforcement. Now, they may still say, I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with it, we can't enforce it. But they did say they were reopening the file after I sent them all the photographs.
According to Ray, the rubbish down there is getting
It's
worse.
getting worse
and
and
worse.
worse, yeah. One of my worries is that there's going to be a big effort and cost to somebody to actually clear it, and Ashford won't, because it says private land, nothing to do with us. But someone, unless it's just going to stay there for the millennium, someone's got to clear masses of stuff and then pay for disposal.
Mm.
So what can the council enforce? Anything? Is there any point in?
Well, I reckoned that it was a breach of the Article 4, but they reckoned it wasn't. But then they said they would reopen it, so I don't know.
And
Yeah.
today you sent another letter asking
I
you
sent
to.
an email which you
Email.
can read it out, Yvonne. You should have it. Went to head of enforcement,
Right.
Joanne Alexander. Copy to our worthy clerk. I didn't copy it to Stephen though. I didn't think that was right.
Dear Joanne, since I heard that your
But you
team
can tell him.
reopened their file on the land of Buds Lane that is subject to an art order and presently in part is hosting an informal piggery, I have heard of further problems caused by the pigs escaping onto neighbouring land rented out by the Buds house owner for grazing by sheep, which sadly has resulted in some damage to the grazing and the fencing. I attached some words from the report that reached me. I went back to have a look at the site this morning as the pigs have been getting out on the land that Charlie rents to Harry for the sheep. They have caused damage to the electric fencing as well as trashing the grass. More concerning, they have been chasing the sheep. The place is looking worse than when Jeremy went and took pictures. More rubbish, and it looks like he's started to dig a trench with water pipe ready to cut into one of the water supplies. There are 2 meters there, one is ours, and I don't know if the other one was yours. I will keep an eye on this and go up to check regularly. I know that Harry spoke to Brandon about keeping the pigs in, as if they bothered the sheep, then Harry would have to do something about it. The situation continues to get worse, and I'm at a loss as to any other body we can go to about it. So, this is back to Jeremy's. I realise this increase in consequences is probably not in itself a planning matter, but it does raise the heat, and there are potentially enforceable matters underlying it all. I'm not clear if your team have yet been able to revisit the site or take any further action, and you may wish not to tell me, but I hope some steps are taking place before things get worse or other problems break out.
You don't think that's appropriate to send to Steve?
Well, I just think that it's kind of council to council. You know, But by all means tell him that I have
Mm.
been on to the head of enforcement again, and I've quoted Ginny's report.
Ginny's report. Okay.
Because, see, to some degree, the enforcement team will not tell me what they're doing. They'll say that's their. I mean, they may tell me in kind of confidence, or just give me an inkling, but it's really their affair.
Mm.
And the trouble is, what we're trying to do is persuade them to do things that they don't want to do, and maybe they actually feel they can't do. But I mean, ultimately, the underlying thing in most of this is that people with land have to defend themselves. And of course, this guy is doing his pig farm on a piece of land because of this strip business.
Mm.
He may or may not have rights to a bit of it, may or may not own a bit, may or may not rent a bit, but the suggestion is that whichever bit he has or hasn't got rights over, he's using a lot more, because all it is, after all, is just a big wood.
Mm.
And the fact that everyone owns 10 metres wide and 50 metres long or something, well, no one even knows where they are. There's a couple of pegs have been put in where they reckon his charl is, and he's been warned not to go on that bit. But, it's all just one bit of wood looks like another. And it's got hundreds and hundreds of pallets down there, being turned into fencing.
It is, I mean, it is.
Plus an old fridge and a
It looks
bed
terrible
and
down there.
this and that. It's a dump. And the Environment Agency ought to be worried about that, because that's unlicensed waste storage. But there we go.
See if you get any reaction.
Okay. Is there anything else then? No. Can we then close?